Have you ever wondered why the same problem that crushes one person can be a mere stepping stone for another? I used to believe it was about strength, about being tougher or luckier. But I was wrong. The secret isn't about the size of the problem, it's about the size of your heart. My world had shrunk to the size of a single bitter tear. A business I had poured my soul into had failed, leaving me with nothing but debt and a hollow ache in my chest. Every morning, the bitterness was the first thing I tasted. Every conversation felt like a reminder of my failure. My pain was a constant companion, a heavy cloak I couldn't shrug off. In my desperation, I sought out Elias, an old man who lived by the edge of town, near the great still lake. He was known for his unshakable peace, a calm that seemed almost mythical to someone like me, who was drowning in turmoil. I found him sitting on a smooth gray rock, skipping stones across the water's glassy surface. I sat beside him, the words spilling out of me in a torrent of frustration and despair. I told him how unfair it all was, how this one problem had tainted every aspect of my life, making everything taste like ash. He listened without interruption, his gaze fixed on the horizon. When I finally fell silent, exhausted by my own sorrow, he didn't offer platitudes or easy advice. Instead, he simply stood up and beckoned for me to follow him back to his small cottage. Inside, he took a clear glass from a shelf, filled it with water from his tap, and then reached for a small bowl of coarse salt. He took a generous pinch and dropped it into the glass, stirring it with his finger until it dissolved. It dissolved. Tasted, his voice gentle but firm. I took a sip and recoiled, the overwhelming bitterness puckering my lips. It was vile, undrinkable. He nodded slowly. "This is your pain," he said. "Right now, your heart, your patience, your perspective. It is the size of this glass. Yes. Even a small amount of salt, a single setback, is enough to make the entire contents bitter. You can taste nothing else." He then picked up the entire bowl of salt, far more than the pinch he had used before, and gestured for me to follow him back to the shore. We stood at the water's edge, where the vast lake stretched out before us, reflecting the endless sky. With a sweeping motion, Elias threw the entire bowl of salt into the lake. The white crystals vanished into the deep, clear water, leaving no trace. "Now," he said, cupping his hands and scooping up some of the lake water. "Taste it again." I hesitated, but then I dipped my own hands in and brought the cool water to my lips. It was fresh. It was pure. There was no hint of salt, no trace of bitterness. It was just the clean, life-giving taste of the lake. I looked at him, my eyes wide with dawning understanding. "The pain is the same," Elias explained, his voice as calm as the water before us. "In fact, I threw much more salt into the lake than I did into the glass. But the bitterness you feel depends entirely on the size of the container you put it in. The lake doesn't notice the salt because its capacity is immense, can absorb the pain without its fundamental nature being changed." He placed a hand on my shoulder. "Life will always give you salt. It will give you pain, loss, and failure. Cannot avoid it. It is the seasoning that helps you appreciate the sweetness of joy and the substance of your own character. The mistake we make is that when we are hurt, we shrink. We become the glass, focus so intently on the pain that our whole world becomes that small, bitter cup of water." He looked me straight in the eye. "Don't shrink, expand. When you encounter trouble, the only thing to do is to enlarge your sense of self, to grow your heart. Stop being a glass, become a lake." That moment by the water changed everything. My problems didn't magically disappear. The debt was still there, the failure still a part of my story. But I was no longer the glass. I began the conscious work of becoming the lake. I started focusing on the vastness of life outside my own small suffering, the warmth of the sun, kindness of a stranger, the simple beauty of the world around me. I practiced patience, understanding that ripples eventually settle. I reached out to others, realizing that connection expands your capacity for compassion, both for them and for yourself. The salt was still there, but I had placed it in a larger container. It dissolved, becoming a part of my story, but no longer defining its taste. So, when life hands you its inevitable salt, when you feel the sting of pain or the bitterness of a problem, ask yourself, are you a glass or are you a lake? Don't let your world shrink to the size of your wound. Expand your heart, Cultivate your patience and become so vast that no amount of salt can ever spoil your waters again. Become the lake.